Hey everyone, it's Eric Laine from St. Mark's with your announcements. So we are in the second Sunday of Advent, and normally I would be recording this while I'm out on my walk, but like many of you, my walks now occur when it's dark usually, because it's dark so early at night, and it's also dark in the morning. So my walks are usually now in the dark. So I figured this would be a better way to do this is be inside and actually record these announcements and kind of take advantage of the second Sunday of Advent with the candles. I really love the candles this time of year because it's kind of reminiscent of the light of Christ within us, right? It's light and warmth in a dark period of time, a dark period of the season, a dark period of time in the country and in the world with the global pandemic going on. And with us not physically being able to meet in person, it's kind of a dark period for many of us. And the candles represent hope and warmth and light in this dark time. And I really always like that about Advent candles, watching them as they add up every week. And when you're a kid, you know that as soon as you get to that white candle and it's Christmas, it's best day of the year, right, for kids. But as an adult now, I realize that really these candles symbolize the light of Christ within all of us Christians. And we are working closer to the celebration of his birth. And seeing them light and the more of them light, now it brings more warmth into my heart because it's a time when I know we're meeting with family and big church gatherings and all that. And I know that this year that's going to be different. We won't be able to do that with not being able to meet in person. And that's tough. But I wanted to let you know that, and kind of remind you, and all of us, and I need the reminder myself sometimes, that just because we aren't physically meeting in a church building doesn't mean we're not a church anymore, right? Like it's like the children's song, right? Like, here's the church, here's the steeple, open the doors, and see all the people. So the people right now aren't under the steeple, but it doesn't mean that we're not a church, because the church is us. St. Mark's is all of us. And I think it's an important reminder to have that we're still here. We're still doing good work. And we're still people that are spreading the joy and love of Christ, right, in the world. And especially now, I know it is going to be a dark winter. Winter's hard for a lot of us. Dark time of the year, it's cold, and some of us struggle with getting through this point. And this year's probably going to be extra hard, given everything that's going on. But the candles kind of help remind us that there is light at the end of the tunnel, right? And what's really important is that we remember that. We are going to come out of this eventually. And when we do, we're going to have a new person who's helping to guide us. So I just thought I'd remind everyone of that. We're going to reopen as soon as we can. We're going to have Christmas Eve special, services in whatever way we can. Since we can't meet in person, the vestry's working on other things that we can do to try to make it a special night. So we're working on that, and we'll have more announcements on that soon. But in the meantime, just understand that at some point we're coming out of this pandemic, and there is light at the end of the tunnel. And now more than ever, we're starting to see it, hopefully. I don't know when the bishop will give us permission to reopen in-person services, but when she does, we have a plan in place to do that and to do it safely. Christmas Eve, we know we're not going to be meeting in person, but we're going to do something special, or as special as we can for that night. But hang in there. There's light at the end of the tunnel. And the other light at the end of the tunnel is who's going to be waiting for us when we get there. And I know that it's going to be different for a lot of us, not having Father Mark when we do return from this. So what I wanted to do, though, was kind of lay out what the vestry has decided to do and the approach we've decided to take, because the diocese kind of gave us a few options on how we could find our next priest. So I figured I'd kind of explain that a little bit to you. So the vestry was basically given some options by the diocese on how we could find another priest. Traditionally, what they would prefer that we do, or one of the options that they would ask us to do, would be to hire an interim priest who, if you were thinking of like those of us that are educators, it's kind of like a long-term sub. Somebody who comes in knowing that they're only going to be there for a year or two, and then they will move on, and they would help aid the church in finding a permanent priest to replace them. They would just be the in-between person. So that's one option that was given to us. Hire an interim, wait a year or two, kind of go through a reflective period, a separation period, and then hopefully within that year or two, go through some potential priest candidates and find our next priest. The other option that was laid out was this thing known as a priest in charge, which is basically where the church forms a search committee who goes through candidates that are approved by the bishop and picks a candidate that they think would make a good priest in charge. And again, kind of thinking in terms of an educator's role or perspective, a priest in charge is kind of like, sort of like hiring a new teacher who doesn't have tenure yet. Those of us that are in education, tenure is 3 years or like 7 years from the last time I had gotten tenure. It's a longer process. When a church hires, goes through the normal route of doing an interim and then having a new priest, that priest comes in with lifetime tenure. Right off the bat, it's kind of like a Supreme Court nominee. They come in and they're basically granted a job for life or for as long as they want it. With a priest in charge, it's a little different. A priest in charge is brought in and kind of we have sort of like a 1-year tenure, if you want to think of it that way. 1 year for them to figure out if they're a good fit for us and for us to figure out if they're a good fit for us as well as a congregation. So that was the other option that was laid out, was this priest in charge. Weighing between the two, interim and priest in charge, the vestry decided it would be best to move forward with finding a priest in charge who will then transition to becoming our full-time priest. We felt that we've already had a lot of separation and reflective time, given that we're in COVID, we haven't been able to meet in person. And we knew with Father Mark's retirement that we didn't really want to wait a year or two after that to try to find a more permanent person. We wanted to find that permanent person as soon as we could, so we could have that person in place, especially when we're ready to reopen in-person services. So the vestry elected and decided to go that route. So our search committee is looking for a priest in charge, and they are going through candidates. In the last update I had, that's going well. They're interviewing quite a few people. So hopefully once they've picked a person that they think would be a good fit for St. Mark's, the vestry ultimately will do a final interview with that person and make that final decision if they're going to become our new priest in charge for a year. And then at that point, we'll make the decision whether it's a good fit for them to be our permanent priest. So I just wanted to explain that process a little bit to you. I know some people have had questions on that or asking what's going on, why haven't we heard much? We're not really allowed to talk about it. I don't really know what's going on. I'm not on the search committee. So I don't know specifics of who or what, and the search committee isn't allowed to share that with us until they have picked a candidate that they think will be a good fit, and then the vestry will approve. So that's where the process is at the moment. And again, I think it's kind of exciting because right now this is, like I said, a dark, difficult time. But there's a light at the end of the tunnel, and it's a pretty exciting light because we're going to have a new person who's going to be guiding our church. And the people are still here. You know, we're not in the building, but we're still a church. And I can't wait for this new person to meet all of you, to meet the people. Because you bring a lot of joy and happiness in my life, and I'm very thankful for all of you. And I just want to again reiterate, if you need anything, if you need somebody to talk to, please reach out to myself or Laura Wright or anybody on the vestry. Get in contact with us, call, email, be happy to pick up the phone and talk with you. And help all of us, help each other through this dark time. Because remember, we're the light. The light of Christ is within all of us. And it's time that we make sure we spread that light through this dark season. The light at the end of the tunnel is coming too, and we're going to see that light soon. So hang in there, everyone. I know it's cold. I know it's dark, but let's keep watching the light. All right. Have a great one, everybody.